All right, hello, Mr. Dowds.
Hello, Mr. Minotti.
So, this is episode 1 of our podcast named
Yes, Mister.
Yes, Mr. And the first episode is going to be named Memeing and Time. So, we thought the first topic for today's discussion would be memes and philosophy.
Yeah.
My two favorite things. So, Mr. Dowds, do you know where the name meme came from? Who invented it?
We talked about how it does come from the word mimesis, right? Which sort of means imitation. I think you knew more about it than I did.
Right.
Given your extensive research into memes, current and old, all of them.
That's correct. The name meme, the word meme, was coined, I think, by Dawkins,
Okay.
the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, as being a mimetic equivalent to a gene. So, in other words, it's an idea that reproduces itself over time, right? And the idea is that the ideas which reproduce themselves the best and have the longest lifespan are going to more or less, be the dominant species, so to speak.
Right.
And now we have from there to Pepe.
Well, I think we talked about it, and I thought that Pepe the Frog was a frog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of the first memes that I remember. I actually told you that I was a miserable drawer. My penmanship has been miserable all my life, but I remember very distinctly drawing Pepe on paper during class in high school at some point. Right, it was different emotions and stuff, right? It was happy and sad and
right. And so you could always put Pepe into a comic of some sort, and that would
Why
somehow...
though was one of them, right? No,
Why?
it was why though. It was something unfortunate would happen,
yes.
And then Pepe would be there with a frowny face or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's why was that Pepe or was that something else?
There was also this bald face that I saw a lot, which expressed feels and emotions.
Yeah.
And I know that was combined with Pepe often,
Sure.
so that it strikes me that probably was the case. And then what's also interesting is Pepe eventually, so he originated in a comic book, which I've actually read a couple comics of and found it absolutely miserable.
Looked the same as the meme
Yes,
itself. The ugly
yes.
little
In
character.
fact, the guy who created the comic book is extraordinarily upset at the development of Pepe as a meme, because the guy who created the comic book is a hard leftist figure, and the meme has become associated with the alt-right. So,
How does a meme get aligned with a political view?
I know the American Civil Liberties Union, I think, originally described it as being an alt-right meme, and then I think ultimately because it's associated with 4chan. People on 4chan use the meme a lot, and 4chan is in turn associated with the alt-right.
What is 4chan?
Okay, so before I begin, do not visit 4chan.
Okay.
This goes to you, this goes to our viewers. I visited the 4chan when I was a young man, but not often. My friends did. I did not. So it's an anonymous forum, effectively, in which...
I remember you
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And people are going to post anonymously, and on top of that, the threads over time just disappear.
Uh-huh.
So it is a very creative place, but also along with creativity comes, it's a wretched hive
and
of
anonymity.
scum.
Yeah.
A wretched hive of scum and villainy. That's what it is.
Scum and villainy, 4chan, don't go visit it.
No,
Yeah.
no. It's nonetheless, they do tend to make the memes that the rest of us
That's
enjoy.
where they come from?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I did not know that.
They develop
It's like
them.
the WikiLeaks of memes.
Yes, effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
So.
We had quite an interesting conversation the other night. I was just talking about the apps that I had first experienced memes on. In fact, I would like to go go back and say that the first meme that I remember encountering was not the frog meme, but it was actually stuff like the owned and fail, and that all comes out of just. I mean, it seems just like boyish talk, right?
There was that like period of time, and I think this is right before the Rage comics, when people would just take like images of animals and post them on colorful backgrounds,
right?
And then associate words with those animals. Right. So that was like the what is that like extremely possessive girlfriend and
yeah. Where she's no, she's not doing that. I don't remember what face she's making or whatever. But I do know what you mean.
Or Bad News Brian. That was another one.
Yes.
Yes. There was that one character who's just the scumbag something. He was delightful.
And he has the like designer hat on and
that's
when they had all the there would be the colorful array of I remember that.
I mean, it is just interesting how like memes over time have become more and more complex, because I think early on you did not need to have any sort of background knowledge to understand those images.
Right.
And nowadays, as I was explaining to you about the meme loss, you need to have like knowledge of the lost meme in order to understand the lost meme.
Yes.
So they become more and more like inside jokes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's just how humor, I suppose, develops online.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly something just very boyish about memes in general, right? I mean, just constant joking and poking and not taking anything seriously, right? I mean, memes, just by and large are never serious.
Yes.
I mean, do you think there is a point where memes are sort of serious?
There are people who try to make memes serious,
because if
and they fail at actually reproducing themselves, right? Like the meme does not become popular,
right?
Because at the end of the day, memes are intended to be humorous, and humor is perhaps by nature irreverent.
Yeah.
So that is one reason why 4chan is so successful at being a generator of memes, is because 4chan is just by nature, because everybody on there is anonymous, utterly irreverent. Like, mass shooting happens and they're just totally joking about it.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I can't say I remember any meme of a mass shooting or a tragedy. I mean, I actually take that back, because as we're talking right now, we're in a tragedy, COVID-19, and there are thousands of memes of COVID-19.
Right.
But something as miserable as a shooting, where there are very like innocent victims. I don't think I've ever seen one like that.
Well, you're not that deep into meme culture.
That's probably very true.
I found them entertaining, although horrible. But I tend to have a dark sense of humor, and I enjoy irreverence.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are not unlike each other in that, right? I mean,
this is true. This is true.
I mean, I guess another instance of just not taking the real world seriously. I don't know, either for better or worse. I mean, there are political memes, right? Mm-hmm. But to me, I mean, they seem to come from like an apolitical standpoint, where it's not like impolitic, but just the meme is created out of the sense of just who cares about politics? We're gonna just bash on every single one of them. Right?
I think those are the memes that are most successful. Right. So what was interesting is during the 2016 election, there were the so-called meme wars going on. Right. So the meme wars. Right. So this was like the alt-right developing memes and the like the progressive left developing memes. And perhaps perhaps I'm just living in an echo chamber, and the left regards itself as having won the meme war. However, I think that Donald Trump's election more or less proved that the meme war was won by the right. And the reason that the meme war was won by the right, that's almost a tongue twister, was because the right was able to not get offended by things. They didn't hold as many things sacred, it seemed. And so they
didn't take themselves too
didn't take
seriously?
themselves seriously. And so they allowed themselves to, there's a degree to which they were able to draw weapons and not worry about having a shield. Does that make sense?
I mean, I would like you to explain it a little bit more.
Yeah, so, I mean, looking at the sociology that I see going on in politics, you're having the left right now taking a number of matters, a number of issues, and regarding them as totally untouchable, unworthy of being criticized at all.
The left.
The left, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Which I'm sure
Shows
happens
a lack
on
of
the
humor
right.
in it.
Yeah, a lack of, yes, absolutely. And to be clear, this happens on the right, but I think it has happened on the right less and less over the 2010s, right? There was a point in time when, back in like the 2000s, when people seemed to be very easily offended on the right. And there are certainly some people who are still super upset about the fact that, like, Starbucks changed their frickin' label on the Starbucks cup. But I don't know that many people who actually are offended. Maybe during that entire debacle, I think I had one Facebook friend who was actually offended about that, and I had a bunch of other Facebook friends who were totally upset that people were upset.
Offended by the Starbucks
By the
emblem or by the change?
By the change.
Right.
Right. So I think what you saw on the right was basically just things becoming less and less sacred, which allowed the right to, more or less elect a clown. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Because the idea of the clown coming into office is the fact that, it's almost showing how unsacred the entire government is.
Right.
So
in some ways, memes are clearly a way that we are, are we expressing our distaste with government in general? Are we expressing, or are we revealing our, idiocy ourselves?
why not both? Like, I mean, the meme works in the same way that any humor works. It allows us to touch things that ought not be touched. Right? It allows you to speak the truth to the king, even if the king is the mass.
I see.
Right? So what is interesting at this point is I think the right, speaking in 2020, the right is no longer the king of the memes, so to speak. I have not been seeing a lot of right-wing meme output. I haven't been seeing a lot of left-wing meme output, but
And that's where I come in and I say it seems a little bit apolitical, where the people who are posting it are fed up with everything that's going on and just decide to disassociate themselves from it by just making fun of everything. And in that sense, memes can look a little narcissistic.
well, that or else they might do something like capture the spirit of the culture, right? Because it does seem to me as though
So the spirit of our culture is narcissistic, or are you disagreeing with?
No, the spirit of the culture is almost just fed up with the entire system. Right? Because Trump, as it turns out, has not effectively drained the swamp. And Bernie has more or less sold out to the Democratic Party in order that the Democratic Party can put up, Joe Biden, who there's a part of me which likes Joe Biden because he does seem so familiar, but then there's also a part of me which really dislikes Joe Biden because he seems so familiar, right? He is almost like he's almost a corporate entity, right? In the same way that the new Star Wars films are a problem because they're made by a corporate entity trying to figure out, they're making the film in order so that the people might like it. They're not actually making the film on its own merits. Joe Biden strikes me as chosen in order that the people might like him, as opposed to chosen for any sort of actual merits.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree with that. That Biden seems to be filling a role, right? Memes and politics. I didn't actually think that we would get to it, but it's
welcome.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there, and it's not even underneath the surface, right?
Absolutely
It's
not.
in front of our eyes, but we just, we
I mean,
don't often talk about it
you know,
because we don't often have a meme expert in our presence.
well, if you think of memes in the biological sense, right?
And here he goes to continue to take it
Oh
seriously.
yeah, of course. And they are serious. Any humor can be taken seriously, right? So if you take memes in the biological sense as ideas that reproduce themselves, you see memes occurring in cultures all the time, just not internet memes, right? So, for example, the Guy Fawkes mask,
Okay.
right? That is a meme which has been successful in reproducing itself in British culture, for instance, right? So, memes and politics are always connected. I Like Ike is an actually good meme. Because it somehow has stuck around enough to the point where at least I know about it. How many other presidential
Do you think slogans or
slogans?
memes?
Yeah,
or
slogans
what?
are a form of meme. I would say the Scooby-Doo song, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, that's a form of meme, right? Like, these are all ideas that, we are still familiar with. And there's a degree to which,
We can do it. The women for World War II.
yes,
right?
yeah, right. And so there's an idea to which what we're doing when we study the great books, what we do when we study classical education, or when we're engaged in classical education, is we are actually studying the oldest memes that we have, right? It's almost like looking at a dinosaur, except the dinosaur is somehow still alive, because the meme is still reproducing itself.
So I mean, memes are something that are created, right? I mean, art is created. I think that's sort of how you can describe art, right? Art is a creation. It's made by people. I mean, are memes a low form of art? Because you seem to be. You're extending. You're extending the. There's by no shot that I think anybody could be convinced that memes are a high form of art.
Okay, so you're already making the distinction.
Right, but there seems to be certainly some sort of link between, at least through this word mimesis, right?
Yeah.
And I learned about the word mimesis through a poet who thought about his poetry in terms of an imitation of reality. And we're clearly using that word meme to refer more to more than just these funny pictures on the internet.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the context in which you use the word meme, right?
Yeah.
But I absolutely think that memes are a form of art, low art.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But insofar as they're made
Yeah.
by man,
Right.
they're an artifact,
Right.
right?
So I am interested in how. Did you say that, the oldest texts are a meme?
Right. So there must have been 100 poets, more than 100, obviously, living in ancient Homeric Greece, but yet there's only one poet living in ancient Homeric Greece, which Homeric Greece is named after, right? And that is the poet who was able to have a poem so successful that the poem could be reproduced down through generations.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Well, that it's created differently, right? "Oh brother, where art thou?" is an Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
"Oh brother, where art thou?" is a meme.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. But I'm saying that
That's
the Iliad
movie.
itself, the Iliad, not just the story of the Iliad, but the Iliad itself is a meme,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the Iliad is still read today.
Right.
It's like the Genghis Khan of memes.
Interesting. Where did you learn this? I'm serious. I'm not asking for anybody who's listening. I'm not. I'm just genuinely curious. in what far depths of the internet must you one search to discover memes?
I mean,
we can do it. I like Ike. Tiger King. These. I can see the link. I can see it.
So, I mean, you know that I have an interest in evolutionary biology.
Okay.
And this comes up in evolutionary biology quite a bit.
Right.
And then, yeah, I would say that was like the stem of my knowledge of meme as a broader like cultural category, as opposed to simply an internet phenomenon.
Right.
There are plenty of people on the internet.
So did you get this word from I'm just interested, because we both know the same word, but we got it in different ways. I mean, where did you originally get this from, Richard Dawkins? Did you read a book of his? Did
Yeah,
you
it's
listen to a podcast,
in the. I think it's in the Selfish Gene.
The Selfish
I've never
Gene?
read the Selfish Gene, to be clear. Though I do understand that like it is regarded as like an absolute classic of modern biology, because that is where he's beginning to make a leap, which people before have done, but I think he does so very effectively. So I understand between genetic information and mimetic information and culture, right?
Information that's repeated.
Yeah, information
Able to
that's repeated.
reproduce itself.
Yeah, right. And a gene is fundamentally just information that repeats itself over time.
Right.
Right. So there will come a point in time where we will actually be storing books, I think, within genetic code, because genetic code turns out to be a pretty viable way to store information, and it's very small.
Yeah.
So
Memeing in time.
memeing in time. Memeing in time. So
Yeah.
shall we call it?
That's 21 minutes.
21 minutes? I'd say that's good.
I think that's a good first
All right.
start.
First start.
Is there anything else that we could talk about?
I mean, if we need to, we'll talk about it in another podcast.
Sure.
So I'll see you folks. Toodles.